as I've been saying lately, putting lipstick on a PDF, right? They're basically, they're ostensibly calling a storyteller when they're really looking for a copywriter or.
Hello and welcome to our virtual bar, the Rose and Rockstar, brought to you by Rockstar CMO, Velocity B and the Marketing Podcast Network. It's Saturday the 10th of January and I'm your host Ian Truscott, and in a moment I'll be joined by Robert Rose, Chief Troublemaker at 7th Bear, for a blend of marketing and mixology. While Robert shares with us one of his fabulous cocktails, I'll pick his brain about a marketing topic that is top of mind for me, and this week it's a story about storytelling that seemed to refuse to die. But first, we need to pay the bar tab. I'll be back in a moment.
We'll be right back after this word.
We'll be right back
After this word.
Why do growing businesses love working in Slack? Let's ask Christy at RE Bikes.
Running things in Slack saves me so much time.
AI summaries save 97 minutes per week. What say you, Rox from Gosney?
Slack helps us build community, it helps us build connection.
Your partners, vendors and customers all in one place. Take us on home, Ashley from Caraway.
If we didn't have Slack tomorrow, I would explode.
Well, let's not let that happen. Visit slack.com/podcast to get 50% off Slack Business Plus.
Hello, my friend, and welcome to the bar.
Thank you very much, mate. How are you doing?
I am doing remarkably well. It's it's the new year. I'm back at work, and things are going well. I'm busy, which is fantastic. So I can't complain. I have to.
Nice, yeah. Because it was quite a long break, when it felt like a long break, and now we're back into it, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, it's like we picked up where we left off. I mean, it's been quite good, actually. We'll see. There's more drama, more drama in my country, which is just I'm just hopeful for a less drama-filled year than has been the proof over the last few. So there you go.
Well, I'd love to say something reassuring, but I know
right. Well,
I'm not the right person for that. So let's drink. What do we got?
Indeed. So we are going to keep it straight. Like last week, to celebrate the new year, we had a straight up champagne.
Yep.
We are going to drink tonight it's a bourbon whiskey that I discovered over the holidays that I have just fallen in love with. It's unfortunately not cheap, so but it is called The Representative.
Oh wow!
And that's the name of the brand, is The Representative, and they've got a number of different kinds of bourbon, but basically different ages, etc.
Yeah.
And so basically, it's a small distillery that is doing this wonderful barreled bourbon, and just an amazing, wonderful. And if you want to spend, anywhere between $50 to $150 for a bottle,
wow,
you can't go wrong. It's just absolutely.
Right.
So we're having this basically straight up, nothing in it other than a big rock, and we'll just have a little bit of straight up bourbon whiskey, The Representative.
Nice. Yeah, I didn't think we'd be making old fashions out of this one.
No cocktails in this one. This one is you enjoy this one straight for sure.
Nice, some proper sipping bourbon. So while we're sipping on these bourbons, I got a question for you, mate. There's a story that doesn't seem to, it refuses to die, right? And I know, because you referred to this in your podcast probably 3 or 4 weeks ago now. It was published in the Wall Street Journal, and it was talking about companies needing storytellers, and it was pretty it was a bit meh in terms of the article itself, but it still keeps popping into my LinkedIn feed. And I know everybody that we know has probably had a go at it, including Anne Handley and people like that. But as an author of a couple of books on this very topic, if you were to write that story, what would you have written, mate?
Well, here's the thing. I think, when I had a go at it, I actually wrote this in my post. I actually wrote a little play of the writer and the editor having the discussion around writing this story, which was basically like, the editor asking I need 1,000 words on storytelling, and the writer going, oh, fine, okay, fine. Am I litigating storytelling? And they're like, no, I don't want you to litigate storytelling. Just it exists, right? So, so I think the major critique is that my comment to Anne Handley was basically, tell me you know nothing about storytelling by telling me you know nothing about storytelling, and so the problem with it is that she doesn't offer up anything as a point of view in there at all, which of course is the heart of a great story. Regardless of whether it's an investigative or not, she basically she observes the fact that there are a lot of businesses that are looking for storytellers in their job descriptions. And this goes back to a little bit of what we talked about last week in terms of the words of AI and AI strategy sort of dying out and some of those things, which is the recognition that, and she does not make this conclusion, this is my conclusion in getting to the heart of the question you asked, which is the recognition that businesses are discovering that it's kind of a big deal. Like you need to have this skill. This skill needs to exist. Now, what is the skill? That's what the story is missing for sure, and that's where I would have gone. Right? Is to say what in fact most of the businesses that are advertising for a storyteller, are missing is the actual skill set that is required and needed in order to facilitate what it is you're actually looking for. So many of them are just basically they're as I've been saying lately, putting lipstick on a PDF, right? They're basically they're ostensibly calling a storyteller when they're really looking for a copywriter, or they're saying they're looking for a storyteller when they're looking for someone who can actually be write subject matter expertise stuff, and that's not a storyteller per se. And the interesting thing is that, and she actually takes a bit of what is so humorous about her approach to this story. And by the way, I'm glad she wrote it, and I'm glad she's getting all the accolades, and I'm glad, by the way, I'm very happy for her. She posted, the writer posted it, so it was forwarded to me. She posted on LinkedIn herself, talking about how this is the story that she's, it's the most viral story she's ever written. So I'm glad for her, right? I'm very, very glad that, she's getting lots and lots of attention. Good for her. That said, it's just not a great story about storytelling. It's not. And so that's where I would have gone with it, is to talk about, well, what does this really mean? And Anne got to the heart of it, which was basically this is businesses recognizing or failing to recognize that there is probably a skill already in-house that they have that they just haven't allowed to exist in its full potential yet. And so perhaps this is actually businesses waking up to that fact. And so that's the hopeful side of it, is that if businesses can actually wake up to the fact that this has been a thing for a while, you're not inventing something new. This has been around for a long time, very quietly under the covers, and it's actually something that you really do need.
Yeah. And so when you detail out those skills, what's the difference? And by the way, I just looked, we ought to give a name check to the author, Katie Dayton, Deighton, just in case anybody thought we were saying that Anne Handley had written this, but she hasn't.
No, Anne didn't write the story. No. Yeah. Kate, is it Kate or Katie? I can't remember.
Katie, according to what I'm looking at. Yeah. So when you're talking about the skills of storytelling, and particularly from, obviously, our listeners know that you've written 3 books on content marketing. What are you talking about, the overall strategy or the mechanics of putting a story together?
Well, it's a bit of both, right? And that's where the confusion lies in most businesses. Yeah, is that it is the mechanics of, because inherently storytelling in business is a collaborative process.
Yeah.
So there are mechanics to it, very much like, and I've used this metaphor before. It's like when a studio decides, or any studio, whether it's a major movie studio or an independent studio, that there's a production team. When they decide to make a movie, basically, when they decide to tell a story, there are many parts, mechanical parts. And when I say mechanical parts, I mean people for the most part, who contribute to the value and the overall construct of the story. It's not just the screenplay, right? It is the director that adds a point of view. It is the costume designer that adds a point of view. It is the set designer that adds a point of view. It is the cinematographer that adds a point of view. And all of those things have to be corralled or controlled. And usually it's the director's job to control that. So there are roles, responsibilities, workflows, etc., to producing a collaborative story, mechanical bits. But at the core of it is the story that you want to tell. And there is a construct for that. Now, we don't have to get into the esoteric, whether you're getting into hero's journey or whether you're getting into this story structure or that story structure. It's just, it's ostensibly, are you creating, an argument for something? Are you creating something with tension, something that resolves the tension, and something that actually is different on the other side of, from where it started to where it ended? And that's the sort of simplest way, the simplest sort of Pixar-oriented story structures, but, therefore, right? And something was happening, but then this happened, therefore this now happened. That's it. Most marketing content tends to not have the but in it, has no tension in it, has no difficulty or challenge in it. It's all and we're great, and we do this, and we do that, and we do this, and we're the best in the world at that, and we're this, and we're that. And basically what storytellers can do is insert the tension and the universal truths that make great content worth consuming.
We've talked about that, I think, ages ago, about case studies, right? Or success stories, whatever you want to call them, is that they often are, company had the problem, vendor rode in, big white horse, solved problem, everybody was happy. Whereas a really good case study has that tension and that story in it.
It shows the challenges. Like, it was not easy, right? It wasn't, it was hard, and they struggled, and they had this challenge and that challenge. And by the way, the product didn't meet all the expectations, but they got around it. You truly make the customer the hero in getting to a successful, or at least, cliffhanger style ending. Where there's real change, and that's what keeps people. That's what makes it interesting, right? Is that tension? Is the journey worth taking, basically?
And so, the story was the data that she used for the story was basically, wasn't it, job descriptions where it was, it asked for people to be storytellers. What do you think they meant by that? Then, do you think they meant that thing we've just described, which is, here's a case study, here's a press release, here's a product we're releasing. Tell us a great story around that, or is it something else? Is that what these, is that the evidence that she's using there?
Yeah, I think. Well, I don't think she comes down on one side or the other, which is part of the problem of the article, as far as I'm concerned, is that she doesn't actually litigate storytelling and what they quote unquote meant by that. And in many ways, it would be unfair of her to ask, well, what did you mean? Because she would have to literally go out and look at all those posters and say, hey, what did you mean by this, right? Or at least get a sampling of that, and that would have required research and stuff. So, but I think when you look at it at its surface, and this is just born more from experience than anything that was pointed out in the article. I think mostly what those businesses are doing is latching on to, in very much the same way that we latched on to, social media guru, or editor or chief content officer, or all these fancy titles that businesses are trying to do to make positions look cooler than they actually are. You know, because so many of them are just copywriters, right? So, you know, and I don't mean just copywriters, because copywriting is an incredibly hard job and incredibly productive. But basically, you have, you know, when you're a copywriter, you have a job to do, and it is an incredibly hard one. And what they're trying to do is sort of make that sexier for some reason, right? And so instead of calling it a copywriter, you call it a storyteller.
Yeah. So do you think we should all be putting, any of us that can tell a story, that can write reasonably well, should be putting storyteller in our LinkedIn profiles?
Well, I'm not going to lie, I did. You know, I mean, you know, show me a wave and I'll write it. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, it's like, I'm not going to. Somebody, I put an AI generated image on one of my LinkedIn posts the other day, and somebody commented on my post and said, "Yeah, it's a good post, but why are you using these stupid AI images to illustrate the thing?" And you know, I didn't comment this, but what I wanted to say was, because the algorithm loves it. That's why. I mean, I'm not, you know, you know, I can be bought. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm not as pure as all that. I will use the tools that you put in front of me. You know what I mean?
All right. And so that's what you would have written if you'd have written the article. One quick question that came to mind there while you were chatting about it, while you were talking about it, was this is an article that's created a lot of conversation. It's become somewhat viral in our little goldfish bowl. Yeah. And the author's delighted by that. And so it's ticked, whilst it has not ticked a lot of boxes in terms of the subject matter, it's ticked a lot of boxes of what the world sees as a good piece of content by some different set of metrics. Do you think that there's something to be learned from the article in its ambiguity, that we need to leave room for conversation in our writing?
Well, that's a great question. That actually is a really interesting question. And I think the answer to your question is 100% yes. I think I think you make an excellent point. I don't know that she successfully did that. I don't know that she successfully left it open-ended on purpose. Like, I don't think she thought like you just did. Right.
Right.
I think she was challenged with writing 1,000 words on storytelling in the sort of zeitgeist of the moment, that Storyteller has consumed 70,000 job postings and something's in the air and you should write something on this. Yeah. And so I think she had a deadline. She wrote the piece and basically said, this thing exists in the world. There are lots of people there. I've got to find a counterweight to show any sort of counterweight to it. Oh, I'll find this stupid blog post from this German guy in 2016 who says, you know, you're not a fucking storyteller, and I'm going to link to that as sort of, you know, the silly side of it, and then call it a day, right? Basically, you know, she was done. If I had felt like she did what you did, I would be like, yeah, that's really interesting. You know, leaving open the conversation, like literally and almost explicitly asking the question, what do you all think, right? You know, and so I think you make an excellent point that there is room to use an article to create conversation, for sure. I'm not sure that's what she did.
Yeah, and there's also a deeper question there as well, isn't there, about, you know, it's gone viral or whatever, did it achieve its goal? I mean, it's like, because I'm seeing a lot of on LinkedIn, you know, people sharing their personal points of view and various bits and bobs, and they get a lot of likes, they get a lot of reaction and a lot of that kind of stuff. But is it really achieving anything concrete beyond impressions and likes and comments, right?
Well, that's
how is it presenting that?
I mean, that's all. I mean, that's all the article is supposed to do, is generate a lot of clicks and likes and impressions so that it sells, you know, more Nissan ads, right? I mean, so it's from the Wall Street Journal's perspective, I'm sure it was fantastic. And by the way, if you notice, I don't know if you've Googled this or not, this is fascinating. Do this. Search for the headline or search for sort of the general keywords of the headline. Yeah. You will see the copycats, including, by the way, The Guardian. The Guardian did a copycat article, right?
Really?
Yeah. And so there are copycat articles out there right now that are trying to latch onto the wave a little bit. Yeah. And so I think the virality of it within our little bubble, what it tells me is that, it's not dissimilar from how excited and sort of over the top excited we would get when Wall Street Journal or Ad Age or one of the institutional giants would make mention of things like content marketing or branded content or, all those kinds of, shit we've been talking about for 10 years. And all of a sudden it got mainstream media coverage and we're like, we're famous. Right. And so I think you have a little bit of that going on inside our bubble, the world of content management, storytelling, content marketing, that whole little bubble. I mean, outside of that, but like my wife didn't give a shit about that article at all. Right? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I was thinking that too. Yeah, absolutely. And it was funny you reminded me of that that you're not a fucking storyteller article. But I can't remember. I will need to Google it and maybe I'll add it to the show notes. But yeah, there was somebody, wasn't it? It was back in 2016 and we did discuss it on this podcast.
You and I discussed it on this show. Yeah.
Yeah,
100% we talked about it. And you wrote a piece on it. You actually wrote a blog post about it. Yeah. Yeah, which is
God
great.
Almighty. Yeah.
If you actually search for "You're Not a Fucking Storyteller," I think your blog post comes up third or fourth or something like that.
Wow. Well, I'll have to do that. But anyway, I will, for the listeners, don't worry about Googling. I'll include it in the show notes. And for you, Robert, where will people find even better content that 10 years' time people are going to be referring to that's got swear words in it?
Wall Street Journal is usually pretty good, but you come to our website, which is seventhbear.com.
Splendid. And when people spin the dial on the interwebs, where do they find you these days?
They will find me on LinkedIn almost exclusively, and then they'll also find me. What I should do is put out a little blurb for my art project that I'm still working on, which is of course, LilaHightower.com. You can hit LilaHightower.com and
well, just before the holidays, we did a whole show on it. It's fascinating. I've been sharing it with people. I think it's a fascinating project, mate.
Yep. There's now, and there. By the time this airs, there will be an email newsletter associated with it, and all sorts of things. So,
wow, yeah, but missed out on a Christmas single though. I think it would have been number one.
Billy Mac.
All right,
Billy Mac. His Christmas single.
All right, mate. So, and most importantly for me, will you be in the bar next week?
Of course.
Excellent. And I'll see you then. Thank you, Robert. I love his honesty about jumping on a trend there. And if you haven't seen it yet, the story we're talking about was in the Wall Street Journal and was called "Companies Are Desperately Seeking Storytellers." I'll include a link to that article along with all of Robert's links in the show notes, which you can find on our website, rockstarcmo.com, along with the links to me, our newsletter, and all of our previous episodes. So that's a wrap on our visit to the Rose and Rockstar. Thank you for putting a dime into your podcasting jukebox, selecting our track, and jiving along with us. I'm glad you came. We'll be back next week. In the meantime, a quote from the great storytelling coach and one of Robert's mentors, Robert McKee, on the value of storytelling. What happens is fact, not truth. Truth is what we think about what happened.
This podcast is heard along the Marketing Podcast Network. For more great marketing podcasts, visit marketingpodcasts.net.